me well, I'm a football tragic, and the World Cup is just a couple of months away. Now, if you're English like me, that means that we're going to get 4 weeks of anxiety, warm beer, short lived glory, and then we'll inevitably lose in a penalty shootout to Germany. It is now nearly 60 years since wearing this football shirt. We won, but we are hopeful this is the year it's going to happen. If you're in media, though, or if you're in marketing or in brand, you're already planning your campaigns to reach 1 billion hyper engaged, 2 billion hyper engaged people around the world. And that means that social media, well, it's going to be running at full speed for weeks. It's going to be absolute chaos. Now, that sounds like awesome fun if you're into chaos, but it can also bring risks with it. So today, I'm joined by a mate from a company that I've known for a long, long time called Survey that work on this kind of stuff. Now, Matt Chiodi, hi Matt, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you, Ricky.
Is the Chief Strategy Officer there. And so we're going to talk about the part of the plan that most people don't think about and haven't thought through enough, and that's security. So Matt, mate, I know you can't fix England winning the World Cup. If you can, please do. But tell me, what are people missing here and what's the risk? And it's important, this, because this is about securing and keeping your brand safe at a time when most people ever are looking. So can you just talk me through that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, and it's something that I think many execs don't think about when it comes to protecting their brand. The bottom line is that, social media as a platform, the amount of people that are on it has dramatically changed over the last decade. But the controls in the enterprise and the brand have not evolved with that. And there's just not robust controls over who has access to these social accounts. And when you have a massive event, like you said, with billions of viewers coming in for World Cup, that's a serious problem. And quite frankly, I really wish this was a conversation that more teams were having, because time is, closing in fast until this starts in June. So I think it's a great question.
So can I ask what the actual problem is here, right? So in my experience in media companies, what happens is that you've got an army of really enthusiastic journalists that are passionate about this event, that want to write for the readers, but they want to make it real time. They want to talk about exactly what's happening. And the best way for many of them to do that is through social, because it's where they can find their audiences and can engage with them. But you might have 20 or 30 social accounts, or you might be using the reporter's own social account,
That's
or
right.
you might be using someone else's social account that's left, or there may other be social accounts out there that are just people have forgotten still exist, that are still open. That's the risk, isn't it? Is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. You just nailed it on the head, right? You're talking about account sprawl and who has access to those accounts, who still does, who shouldn't, like all of that. Most organizations, small and large, they really don't know, right? We've got customers that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year in terms of ad spend through these very viable channels, but they have no good way to protect it. And in many cases, they don't even know who has access to it. So yeah, this is a large problem for almost every brand that we speak with.
And you think about how much time and effort people put into protecting their brands, but this is like an open door to anyone to cause mischief. So what do you do in that scenario? What is the process? How do you put protections in place to stop something like this going awry?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things that we like to tell organizations to do. Right, number one is you have to understand, like, what accounts do you actually have, and this sounds basic, right? But actually coming up with a list of those important brand accounts. Some of them may be obvious, right? The big ones are going to be obvious, but maybe it's the ones that you only use for that are campaign specific, or maybe they're for a specific executive. It's starting with coming up with that inventory of those important accounts. That's step number one. And to be honest, most customers, most companies are less organized here than you would think. So that's step one. Step two is then finding out who has access. Like, not who should have access, but who actually has access. That's the second part. And then the third part what we usually do is, you'll have this big list of accounts. Is don't start with all of them. Don't try to boil the ocean. Pick the ones that have the highest values and start with that account. Try to go down through that list that we talked about. Maybe think about it in terms of, like, what is the account that you could least afford to lose during a major moment, right? Like the World Cup. Think about that. What is it? If your biggest campaign went sideways tomorrow, would you know exactly who could access to get in? And then how fast could you regain control? Those are the real questions that unfortunately most brands don't think about until an account takeover happens.
Mate, that sounds, you've used some phrases there that sound absolutely terrifying. So, account takeover. So, the reality of what you're describing is, if you're a publisher, for example, then you've got all these journalists writing those accounts, but there's one that's been left over that someone's managed to get into. That might be a disgruntled employee. It might be somebody that's managed to get their hands on it, that wants to cause some mischief. Then they can just go in and post as you to this massive audience at a time when everybody's paying attention, and you might not even know that back door is open, right? Or if you're a brand, right, and you're there and you're trying desperately to sell hair care products to people at this just very moment, then you've got exactly the same risk. This feels like something that somebody, like think how hard you work to keep your office secure. You lock the doors at the end of the day, right?
That's right.
You've left this open, but because it's social, it tends to fall off the radar, or it seems to be something that, yeah, we'll get round to it, right? But this is the time to clean house. Is that right? In fact, tell me, you must have come across examples where this has gone wrong. Can you share any?
Yeah, we've had many, many examples of, people have come to us with this, but just like picture this, right? So you have a campaign that goes live in the morning, and then an hour later, your main social account's posting something offensive. It's confusing customers. You're burning through ad dollars that you didn't approve, right? That is exactly the kind of problem that turns into a brand crisis very quickly. We had one specific customer that came to us a number of years ago. This is a massive brand that spends hundreds of millions of dollars per year on social media advertising. Well, it wasn't the case here where somebody did something nefarious. It was just an employee, an ex-employee who had left, and they were now signed into, guess what, another company's account. They mistakenly redirected ad spend to their new company to the tune of a couple $1,000,000 before it was caught, right? So, and you can't get that back. That's what most people don't realize. And if you try to get those things back, a lot of times you end up going through the same consumer channel that you and I would go through with trying to get our own individual account back.
Yeah,
That
good
is
luck
a
with
very
that.
real
Which
example.
number do I ring? Who do I ring? Sorry,
Yeah,
what?
try to pick up the phone and call somebody at Meta, right? It's difficult unless you've got the hotline.
Yeah. So right. So it can be innocent as well as nefarious, to your point. It can just be somebody just logging in. I've been using this account for years. I bet you that there will be hundreds of people listening into this at media companies that have given all of their staff the keys to post on their brand's behalf because their staff have their own social accounts, that have given no thought whatsoever to what happens when those people leave.
And that's brilliant, right? It's brilliant. I was just speaking with someone last week about this, and they told me they're like, I just signed into a social account, and they're like, see this company here? They're like, I haven't worked for them for 5 years. They're like, I could still post on this if I wanted to, right? So sometimes it is nefarious, but other times it's just not. It's just, the access just remains years later. Another story, Ricky, that we hear a lot is that we actually had an employee a number of years ago at Serby who had been here for about a year, and he got a call from an employer two ago, and they said, hey, can you give us the 2FA code? We can't get into the account. We need to be able to get in so we can actually switch it away from you. This is just really common across large organizations that have a massive social presence. But again, the risk management around the brand just hasn't kept up with, for example, how they protect their internal IT systems or how they protect their financial systems. It just hasn't caught up.
And what do you do? So the people that listen to this work, or follow the work that I do, these are mainly CEOs. They're busy people. They are C-suite execs. But there's an interesting thing about being a CEO, which is that at the same time as being the big boss with the fancy car and the driver, okay, which is awesome, you also have all the stresses that keep you up at 4 o'clock in the morning of all the things that you need to be aware of which there are too many, okay? And it's the one that don't think of is the one that truly trips you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that turns out to be the landmine. A series of bad posts from someone during an event of this scale attached to your brand feels thermonuclear to me. So, yeah. So these are the 4 a.m. night terrors, okay, for CEOs, right? And I'm not trying to rile them with my description here. I'm just saying I've lived that. I know what that feels like when that happens. How can you put their fears to rest? You said earlier on, do an authentication, have a look at who's who, blah blah blah. But really take me through it step by step by step. I'm the CEO. This has now got me triggered. As soon as this call ends, I'm going to get on the phone and I'm going to get someone to fix this. What do they do?
I think the first call goes to probably the CMO or whoever runs social for the company, who owns it, and just ask them nicely, "Hey, just curious, we've got big event coming up. How are we managing access to our brand socials? What does that look like today?" That's how I start the conversation all the times. And a lot of times it does come through, sometimes it comes through a cybersecurity team, sometimes it comes from the executive team. But that's the question to start with, is just seeing what they're doing today. What we find with even some of the largest brands, the ones that are doing it well, but it's being done manually, is they usually have the access in a spreadsheet, right? They've got a Google sheet, they've got a Microsoft Excel sheet, and they've trying to do a good job of keeping, Jane had access, Ricky had access, Matt had access. But once you get beyond 5, 10 users across multiple different platforms, it's impossible to manage in a spreadsheet. So that's the first call, is just to ask them and just start to assess, like, do they have a good handle on it? And the answer is, again, most time is that they're meaning well, but it has just grown out of proportion. And quite frankly, it's often seen as the job of IT or security. And then if you ask IT or security, a lot of times they'll say, "Oh, well, that's the marketing team's job." And so you end up one of those classic cases, Ricky, where nobody owns it. And because nobody owns it, that's where we end up with these number of account takeovers that are happening. And the fact that, when you ask consumers around them, if a company experiences a breach, 66% of consumers say they will stop doing business with that company. So even though this may not be a technical, like a data breach, it is a breach of perception of trust with that brand. So it always starts with that first call if you're the CEO. And then usually there's a bit more digging that goes into it around, what do our budgets look like? What's the governance we have in place? And it just starts from that first question. How are we managing access to our brand socials today?
All right. So today I'm Jeffrey CEO. All right. I've come off this call. I'm like, hey, I need to do this thing. What happens next? How does Survey solve that problem? So you get the call. All right. I've got 68 accounts. They're sitting in a Google Doc. I'm not sure it's all of them. I know these ones though. They're all open as far as I can tell. 2/3 of these people have left. I'm worried. How can you organize this for me so it stops being a headache? What do you do?
Yeah. So what we do is part of our customer onboarding process is you'll work directly with our customer success team, who's done this hundreds of times. So you might be upset. You might be like, "Hey, we got to move this fast." Our team has done this many times for large brands. What we'll do is we will take essentially that account inventory, and we will work with you on prioritizing, where do we want to start. We will then work with your team to get that access, get those accounts brought into Serby. And here's the key here, right? So if someone's on the IT side of the house, they're listening, maybe it's a CTO that's listening or a CISO, we are able to connect those brand accounts to an enterprise identity, right?
Oh, I've lost you, mate. Your audio's dropped out.
Uh-uh.
There, you're back.
Am I back? I saw it flashing. All right.
Oh, go ahead.
So every
So
day,
you were just saying you connect with a CISO and then you would begin the process.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that Serby does is we connect those brand social accounts to an enterprise identity, right? So when you log in your laptop every day, use that same username and password across most of your corporate apps. Guess what? Social media, different access, right? Because it's in that spreadsheet. Serby connects an enterprise employee's ID to those social accounts. That way
Right.
it's all automated. Now, here's the thing most people don't think about, Ricky, right? Is like it's one thing managing access for your own employees. But when you're dealing with brands that have multiple different agencies, contractors, regional teams, campaign specific accounts, that's where things usually get sticky. Serby, we solve that problem. We have a way to be able to give seamless access to people who aren't your employees and then be able to automatically shut that access off when it's over. So our customer success team will help your team bring that onto the platform, and then the platform manages that access automatically moving forward.
Okay, so I'm the customer again here. So I'm having this conversation with you. I'm saying, okay, so now what I'm going to get is I'm going to get one login for my stuff. It's effectively an umbrella account, and below it sits a whole series of child accounts, but they're all controlled from that one top account. So at least I now know all my accounts are locked up in one box. And if I want to go and manage those accounts, I can go and delete that one, or delete that one, or disable that one, enable that one, and so forth. But I can do it in one single dashboard effectively that enables me to not worry about my I was laughing when you were telling me about the fact that they've got all the accounts kind of cut and pasted into a Google Doc, which they've probably got on share for anyone with access to this link that probably half the world's got. But in this one, this is now a lockdown one, so only a handful of people will have access to this. So you've effectively put those access points behind a firewall or behind a security wall. So now you have control. The CEO can get some sleep.
That's right. It's a single place to come in. So most, social media experts, CMOs, marketers, they're used to working in social media management tools from a content perspective, scheduling content, things like that. Serby comes in on the managing access to those native platforms. So just like those social media management tools give you a central place to see all your content across your channels, Serby does that from the access perspective. And that right there, just having everything in one place, that is powerful.
So heaven forbid something goes wrong. That unexpected post appears. Maybe one of your, we had this in Australia recently. Maybe one of your reporters has got a little bit tipsy, out in the
Never
field,
happened. Never happened.
and is posting something that perhaps you don't want there. You've got an off switch now, a central off switch at headquarters. You can just go stop that, right?
That's right. That's absolutely right. So that's the best part of having this. You have that central control point for all of your social accounts too. And this is not just, a lot of people think we're just talking about an X or, a Meta or something like this. This is across all socials, including things like YouTube, other things like that as well. And so there's, probably 50 or so apps that we would consider as part of this universe. It gives you
Yeah.
that central place to know, yes, to turn things off, but to know who did what and to have really that audit trail.
Mate, run me through some of those others that live in that universe. So we've talked, obviously, you've got Insta, well, you've got Meta, right? Facebook, Insta, WhatsApp. You've got, you tell me, YouTube. Who are the other ones that people should, that get covered by this?
Absolutely. There's this massive universe of apps that most organizations don't think about when it comes to social media security. And you mentioned a few of those right there. But there are other platforms in there. We talked about things like Pinterest. There's platforms like WhatsApp that go in there, right? There's a lot of marketing that happens through that. There's Flickr, there's Discord, there's Snapchat, there's Spotify, right? Managing access to all of these different social media type applications. Again, all of them are managed typically in a spreadsheet if it's done kind of well. If it's not managed in a spreadsheet, then it's usually on a piece of paper, which we still see, or maybe in a Google Doc of some sort like that. But yeah, there's tons of these. It's not just the TikToks and things like that. It's the Twitches, it's the Tumblrs, it's the YouTube, the Reddits.
All right. So if you're an England football fan, you appreciate a bit of dark humor. If you're a newspaper editor, you appreciate a bit of dark humor. So share with us the worst example you've seen so far, without naming the company, of somebody who has just totally got this upside down.
Oh, well, there's many examples, but one that comes to mind was a company that had all of theirs, thought they were doing it well. It was in a Google Doc, but what they didn't realize is that it was shared to the entire internet. So anybody that had the link would be able
Yeah.
to see the list of all their accounts and all of their passwords. So
Mhm.
let's just say that they got lucky for a while until it showed up in a Google search, and then they had a problem, right?
Goodness.
So that's kind of one of those more, egregious examples, but it does happen more frequently. And I'm always surprised. You can't tell by the size of the brand how well or not they may govern access to their social channels. But there's a lot of good ones.
This feels to me like one of the things that needs to be on any large organization's cybersecurity list. There needs to be a safe box for all of our social accesses, and all of them go in here. Simple. Do that, CEO gets to sleep at night.
It's definitely a part of it. And I think the reason, and maybe we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but the amount of eyeballs that goes to social has changed so dramatically over the last decade. And it's one of those cases where, again, if you're a cybersecurity professional, you may think about that and think, what's the big risk, right? There's no healthcare data that's in there, right? What's the big deal? But what they don't realize, if someone's on the IT or the security side, is they don't realize the amount of ad revenue that goes through these platforms. So there is a real business risk. The CEO gets it, the CMO usually gets it. But again, most people aren't thinking about, well, how do we actually manage access to these today?
It's also the brand risk. So, you spend an absolute fortune building your brand, whether that's a publisher or that's a retail brand. You put a huge amount of effort into making sure and finessing what you represent. And it only takes one person with one password, with one bad day, or one too many drinks, to cause serious impact to that. Right? I totally understand that. Matt, that's amazing. Frightening, but amazing. But look, thanks so much. Look, you did tell me you were going to help me win the World Cup. So how are we going to do this, buddy? Because it's in America. It's right on your turf, right? England got a good team, right? I fancy, everybody in England we always go into every World Cup with enormous expectations and belief that this is going to be the year. We last won it in 1966. Sure. It's been a while. That means it's been a while between drinks, but yeah.
I can empathize with you though. As a Philadelphia fan, we went through many long stretches like that across our various professional sports teams. So I can empathize with you there. Oh, I hope it's the year for you.
Come on, be amazing, mate. If it is, I will come over and we'll celebrate together, mate. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us, mate. That's been absolutely amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Ricky. This has been great.
All right, catch you later.
See you.